Okay, here's a cracker for you. This is a phrase, here's a phrase that you may not have heard of before. Disruptive talent. It refers to people who think and act differently than, well, from most, and they are, well, they're regarded as innovative and challenge conventional thinking. The problem is that they are often also disruptive or challenging because they just don't fit in. The genius behind Apple, Steve Jobs, was often described as disruptive yet brilliant, but often disruptive people are sidelined in conventional organisations. So, what can businesses do to harness their talent? Well, we are lucky because one of the psychologists behind this proposition is Martyn Sakol, a business psychologist and managing partner of OE Cam, and joins us. Martyn, great to have you with us in the studio because I find this story fascinating. So we talk about disruptive talent, so we hear about the brilliance. Give us some examples. We've got Steve Jobs, for example, but give us some examples of what is this disruptive part? How does that play out?
Yeah, well, very interesting. You've got Steve Jobs and Kevin Peterson behind us. When Steve Jobs stood up at the Apple conference to launch the idea of the iPhone, he stood up in front of the conference and said, "I want to create a phone that people want to lick." Okay. Which in itself is a disruptive statement, and you could see that that could play out negatively. It didn't in Steve Jobs' case, and it didn't in Apple's case. Take Kevin Peterson as an example.
Kevin Peterson's, maybe for our US audience who don't follow cricket, a very big cricket player,
Yeah.
well known.
Yeah, well, as a Scot, it's not really our first sport either. It's probably tennis at the moment, actually, with Andy Murray. Another disruptive talent, actually.
Okay.
But with Kevin Peterson, the support was not there. So clearly the English Cricket Board missed a trick, because whilst he had talent, that talent became destructive rather than disruptive talent, which could have led and underpinned the English cricket team's success.
And so what happened, I mean, typically what's been happening over all of these years is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you're in an organisation and your bosses see the disruptive part, that often camouflages, I guess, the genius or the talent part, yeah. and they're sidelined, is that? Yes,
sidelined, or they leave, or they have labels attached to them that are not positive. I mean, particularly when you think about lots of large businesses, typically they reward corporate behaviour. Funnily enough, I was at the BBC last night when we were talking about disruptive talent, and the interviewer said to me, "Well, we're full of disruptive talent." And I said, "Yes, of course, so you're all the same as each other." And actually the difference that you need to innovate is not quite there. And interestingly, why companies are interested in disruptive talent is because they recognise the need to innovate and differentiate in today's marketplace.
So how do you, for example, provide the tools? Now, you've just come from a big seminar. You've had companies there, Mars, M&S, some big names, right? Virgin. Do you provide the tools so, I guess, management can identify these people?
We do. And the way in which they identify disruptive talent, I mean, it's not just quite a question of tapping you on the shoulder, Aaron, and saying, well, you're clearly disruptive talent. We psychologically profile, we understand the personality of the individuals, we assess their competence, and we take a view about whether they meet the criteria for disruptive talent. And the way in which companies are experimenting with innovating through disruptive talent is by creating programs so that those individuals are supported, and their derailers, the Kevin Peterson example, are anticipated and managed so that they can drive new innovation.
I've got to wrap it up, but I guess the key message is for businesses to embrace this, harness the talent, because I can only imagine we've lost so much, probably a lot of talent over the years.
Certainly you have, certainly. Yeah,
okay. Good. Martyn, great stuff. Short and sweet program, but don't you go anywhere.